Hello, I'm Shaunese Teamer, Executive Director of the Lake County Chamber of Commerce. The Lake County Board recently authorized an emergency appropriation of $19 million to support the needs of Lake County residents. The funds appropriated by the federal government as part of the CARES Act were provided to counties with over 500,000 residents. The County Board has outlined numerous ways that these funds will be used, and on today's program we have with us Sandy Hart, who represents District 13 and also serves as chair of the Lake County Board. Hello, Sandy. Thank you for joining us for this episode of COVID-19 Conversations from the Frontline.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, as we head towards the announced deadline for federal funding, the government has placed supportive funding into the hands of counties on a national level. You recently announced that Lake County received $122 million of the CARES Act funding, and that the County Board has taken some direction to support residents and businesses. Following the most recent board approval, can you outline some of the steps that have been taken so far to identify the route to appropriate this funding?
Sure, thank you, and thanks again for having me. I think it's really important that we get as much information out about what's happening in Lake County. Lake County is really happy to get those monies, $122 million, as you said, and so we are working really rapidly to get that money out the door, but at the same time making sure that we're giving the money to where it is most needed. As many of us have heard in the news, dollars from the federal government have been going to educational institutions that didn't need it, and to businesses, quite frankly, that didn't need it, that never had to close during the pandemic. So we don't want to go down that path. We really want to ensure that the money is going to the people who are greatest in need, and to help those businesses that maybe weren't able to access some PPP funds. So already the county has set aside $4 million in rental assistance, and that money, we could have another round if that $4 million gets exhausted quite quickly. We're also giving $2 million towards food, and some of that money is going directly to Northern Illinois Food Bank, and that helps them really leverage those dollars because they get so many donations and are able to also purchase food at cost. We're giving $10 million. We set aside $10 million for small business. I know that's very of interest to you. So we've set that money aside. And then Lake County, of course, is incurring a lot of expenses due to COVID-19. We've set aside $2 million. So we're only able to utilize dollars that are used for expenses, right? So if they're COVID-19 expenses. So we've set aside $2 million there, and we're also setting aside, the full board hasn't approved it yet, but $10 million to municipalities. And last week we heard from the city of Waukegan, the village of Fox Lake, village of Lake Zurich, and we also got a letter from Mayor McKinney from the city of Zion about some of the needs that they have had. So we really want to work with our municipalities. We are all on the front lines of this, so it's really critical that this money is getting out the door to the people who need it the most. And I'd be remiss if I also didn't say the $1 million in utility assistance that we're setting aside to help people with their gas and electricity.
Well, that's absolutely wonderful. Now, of course, I would definitely like to go into a little bit more detail about the support for small businesses in Lake County. But first, can we talk a little bit more specifics about the funding? We know that it came in. Are there some deadlines associated with the usage of these funds?
So the only deadline that we have is it all needs to be spent by December. So normally our county finance team just meets like maybe twice a month. Mm-hmm. So this team is meeting on a weekly basis so that we can make sure we're moving through. So, but it all does need to be spent by December.
Okay, now you also mentioned that the distribution of funds would be, you mentioned rent, utility, food assistance, COVID-19 assistance. Can you outline any other Lake County organizations or departments that might be helping to manage the distribution to the community of these funds?
Sure, I would be happy to do that, but we actually, if I may, we have more monies that were going out on top of that. Mm-hmm. So we had some special federal funding that we approved in May, and that was about $2.3 million. And so we set aside $700,000 for homelessness, helping shelters and services and rental assistance again. 200,000 also for food banks. And then $100,000 to United Way Lake County to support the 211 program, which is really helpful to us because as they're getting those phone calls in, it's creating a database, which enables us to determine, hey, where is help most needed? And we do see by the data, people are really in need of food and shelter. And so that's what we're really prioritizing. But you had asked me what agencies that we're working with. And so one of those agencies is Catholic Charities. Other agencies that we utilize are the townships themselves because they have a lot of, this is what they do already. So they work with general assistance. So we're working with townships as well, and along with the Veterans Assistance Commission, helping the veterans.
Now, with the deadline only 6 months away, has the county identified a rollout to announce how community access will be handled or how information will be granted, as well as central location of accessing more information and how the details will be released?
Yes, we have. And actually, I want to thank you, Shaunese, for your input on that. So for anybody who's watching, Shaunese Teamer serves on our strategic advisory group and we meet weekly, and Shaunese was saying, hey, we've got to make sure that everybody's aware of this. So how are we, so people don't have to pull the information from somewhere, let's make sure we're pushing it out. So we do on our county's website have Lake County Forward. So there's going to be a lot of information there, but we're also going to be working with our partners like Lake County Chamber of Commerce, other chambers of commerce. We're going to be working with Lake County United, which is an important partner. They are made up of several different religious institutions across Lake County. They're going to help us put the money out, or excuse me, the information out, and also working with the municipalities, because there's a lot of businesses that aren't members of the chamber. And so the municipalities, they know how to access them, right? So working with the municipalities and making sure that they're putting out that information is going to be critical. And then Lake County Partners and Workforce Development is part of that as well.
Absolutely. Now, I know that on Tuesday, Governor Pritzker announced the expansion of 2 existing programs. The state is putting $275 million into low-income home energy program. It's called LAHEAP, as well as funding into the block grant program that also provides food, utility, and other kinds of assistance to residents who live throughout Illinois. Will the county also be able to promote those types of programs so that residents in Lake County have access to that? And how will they be able to find that information?
So yes, and again, thank you, Shaunese, because that was a great idea that you had on our strategic advisory group meeting today. Yeah, it's really important that we're able to put all of this information together in one place, because the governor also put something out for childcare centers and doing grants directly for childcare. That was something that the strategic advisory group really spoke to. You know, people want to get back to work, but they have children at home. So how can we help facilitate that? So we need to have that one-stop shop, if you will, to get out that information for our residents. So yes, we will be having that on the Lake County Forward and then utilizing all of our partners to get that information out.
Perfect. So now, before we address the current statistics of COVID-19, the pandemic in Lake County and its level of effect right here where we live, can we talk a little bit more about the funding that's allocated for small businesses? Of course, as a Lake County Chamber, there's a lot of businesses. We know that a number of businesses did apply for the PPP loans and the EIDL, and some didn't. We know that at this point there's still some funds that are going to be available through the end of June, and hopefully maybe with funds that are available, maybe the federal government will turn around and say, well, these funds are here, businesses still need the support, maybe we'll put those dollars back out, and we can only hope that would happen. But as we take a look at this, how much of the county funding, again, did you say that would be allocated for small businesses, and what can they look forward to as the availability of the funds are announced, whenever they are?
So we have, and the full board has not approved it yet, but we've set aside $10 million in the hopes that the full board will approve that funding, and that's just for small business. And about 90% of all the businesses in Lake County have 50 or fewer employees. So there's a real need for these monies to go to those small businesses. I would anticipate that when that money runs out, that this county board would be interested in funding that again. But right now we're working on the application. As I had said earlier, it's so important that the money goes to the places that need it the most. And we really are making sure that minority-owned businesses and female-owned businesses are getting that same information. I think we've heard a lot of stories about PPP not going to these small agencies. So we're really working on that. And if I may, there's still PPP dollars available. And I would just ask for anybody who's listening to reach out to your bank and find out and put in an application. They will help you to do that. There is still funding available and people can apply, my understanding, right up until June 30th. So really want to push that as much as possible. There is money still available. And what we've heard from our local bankers is there's just not a lot of applications happening right now. So somebody could expect to hear back in just 1 to 2 days. So yeah.
That is great. So now we know that when the PPP funding was released, I guess it was the funds were all gone in like it's probably a week, about 7 or 8 days.
Right.
And what we do is like county, of course, we want to make sure information is out there in advance. So are there steps that are going to be taken to make sure businesses have information about this before the actual application is released? Sometimes when information trickles out, people get there late, and I know even with the start of 10 million, that's not going to be everyone in Lake County, and there's going to be some application process. But how will information generally be released so people can find out more details? I know we're talking about it now, but the first thing they're going to say is, how do I find out more?
Right, right. So all of that will be on that Lake County Forward website. But again, we're going to be really actively pushing out that information. And I would anticipate that as we determine what some of those questions are going to be on the application, we could put some of that out so that people are prepared to kind of hit the ground running when the application is available.
So Sandy, I know that there are some details that still have to be outlined, as you said, for this business application and the loan. It's a grant, right? It's not really a loan, correct?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we know at the federal level, it was companies that have 500 employees or less. And we know that Ruth Chris received 20 million. Is there a cap as far as the funding relative to the business and what they make?
Right, and so the revenue cap is 2.5 million. So any company that has a revenue above that, that's not going to be the companies that we're looking at supporting. We're really focused in on those small businesses that might not have that strong relationship with their bank, and that maybe just didn't feel like that PPP was for them. So it's really those kind of what people refer to as Main Street businesses that we're really looking to help the most.
And of course, since we're not going through banks for this loan, our application going directly to the county, or is that determined how the format of that will take place?
So you're right, it's not going to go directly to the county. So we're going to have a specific group that's helping with that. So as we're getting out and recovering from COVID-19, we have these different task forces that are set up. And one of the task forces that we have is the Business and Economic Task Force. And so that task force is really helping us with the application and helping us determine, hey, what's going to be the best way for us to send out the application, for us to receive it, analyze it, and make recommendations on what companies get the money. So that will be with that group and that task force, and then working with Lake County Partners and Workforce Development are the leads on that.
Absolutely wonderful. So this is great news for businesses, and I know, with everything that's happened over the past, 3 months since March, businesses closing down, families needing funds, but of course, it's important as to what's happening in Lake County relative to COVID-19. Now, I know that on May 16th, you announced that Lake County, being the northeast region of the state, had the highest tested positivity rate of COVID-19 infections. What can you tell us about current numbers?
Okay, thank you. And just to clarify, we had the highest in terms of outside of Cook County. So it was the city of Chicago, then Cook County, then Lake. So, and we don't have the highest population in Lake County either. So DuPage is higher than us. So now we're looking, I looked at it just now, it's about a 14.1% positivity rate. So if somebody is interested in seeing how we're progressing towards phase 4. I think we're doing really well. You can see that at the Illinois Department of Public Health. They've got a website where you can kind of follow that along in the Northeast region. And I think we are really looking good for going into phase 4.
Perfect. Now, relative to testing facilities in Lake County, how many testing facilities are there?
So, you know, I can't speak to the number of private testing facilities because I think new ones are popping up all the time. So some hospitals might have some testing facilities, but the one that we really track is the free testing facility in Waukegan. It used to be at the old emissions site where people get their emissions tested for their car. And then because that needs to be reopened, it was moved, and I say we, but it's the state. The state moved it over onto Water Street in downtown Waukegan. And they have the capacity to do 750 tests per day, and we are not even coming close to that capacity. So it's really so important that we get that testing out there. We were extremely fortunate to be one of the few counties at the very beginning to have that testing available. So in fact, we had it long before DuPage County had it. So while some people say, well, I don't really want to drive all the way to Waukegan, you know, we're fortunate to have it, and we're fortunate to have the Illinois Guard conducting all of those tests for us.
Now, with, you know, you mentioned the level of funding that's been made available to Lake County. What other steps would you say are taking place in order to address this pandemic for residents that live here?
Let me tell you, I'm so proud of Lake County and all of our partners for everything that is happening. So if I just start with United Way of Lake County and their 211. So United Way started a fundraising so that they could, people want to give, right? And so United Way said, okay, we'll set up a fund. It'll just be for COVID-19 relief. So hundreds of thousands of dollars have gone out there. So that's one thing. We talked about some of the rental assistance that we're doing. We also worked with Twice as Nice, which distributes diapers. So we were sending out diapers to people who needed it. We partner with A Safe Place, making sure that victims of domestic violence and their families are able to stay somewhere safe, you know, and that's in a hotel. So we're so grateful to have many churches and religious organizations that have been taking in homeless people every evening in the winter, but in the summer that shuts down. So what was happening to people in the summer? Well, now we're setting them up in the hotels so that they can get the care that they need. And we're also working with different agencies to make sure they're getting fed. There's also an initiative called CATCH, Community Action to Combat Hunger, and that's a countywide response. So we have a lot of homebound seniors who can't risk going out and getting food. So we're matching up volunteers with some of these folks to make sure that they're getting, having a way to get food delivered to their home. There's also a lot of assistance. So we have a lot of assistance with delivering PPE. We are prioritizing long-term care facilities, or what the health department calls congregate housing. So that's for, you know, senior living areas, nursing homes, but also our jail, right? It's extremely important that we're protecting people living in these extremely close quarters and who are very vulnerable as a result. So they are being prioritized for PPE, that's gowns and goggles, masks, and, excuse me, making sure that we're doing contact tracing as well for those people. And then again, working with 211 and determining where the needs are.
Now I know that the Lake County Board works very closely with the Lake County Health Department. What has been their response to the COVID-19 experience at this time?
Well, honestly, I think we're extremely lucky to have the people at the Lake County Health Department. Mark Pfister has been leading that, and he actually has his PhD in kind of communicable diseases. So this is right in his wheelhouse, and he's been wonderful. So one of the things that we did was we took some of the staff who are working in other areas, and I think it's about 20 people, and we put them directly towards helping people in that congregate housing setting. So congregate housing is really managed and overseen by the Illinois Department of Public Health, but everybody's got to pitch in to make sure that people are safe. Right. And so that's what the health department did. They moved people over and put funding there and really helped with infection control, making sure people are fitted correctly for their N95 masks. Again, helping with contact tracing, doing a lot of training. So they've really been wonderful. And then even aside from that, this is a time of great anxiety, right? Great anxiety, not just due to the pandemic, but we have a high unemployment rate right now. And Lake County has the least worst, if I can say. I don't want to say it's the best. It's the least worst unemployment rate. The last we heard was 15.1%. So that's a number we haven't seen in a very long time. So people are worried about getting food on their table and if they're going to lose their job. And so the health department has been really working hard on sort of supporting people with behavioral health, and then really moving towards telehealth, right? So people can still get the support and medical care they need, even if they can't meet their doctor face-to-face. So we also got extra funding from the state for contact tracing. And not only was that because we did have that high positivity rate, but as the governor said, we had the infrastructure in place to really move quickly on contact tracing. And that says a lot, right? So we had an issue here, but he saw that we had the means to really make a difference for the vulnerable populations that we have. So I'm just really grateful to their whole team. They've just done an outstanding job.
Yes, I do recall when the governor first made the announcement about contact tracing, it was all over the news that it was going to start in Lake County. So with that having started, what have actually been the results of that? Are they, when they do that tracing, are they actually notifying people and finding information in those circles where people have connected with others? Are they making phone calls?
Yes, so all of those things. And one of the things that I learned is that this contact tracing has been something that our Lake County Health Department has been doing for years. So we have a TB clinic, and unfortunately, sometimes we have people who contract TB, and so we need to do contact tracing for those people. So when we did have a case in the jail, we did contact tracing to find out who those people were in contact with. So it's something that the health department has been doing for a very long time. We do have the ability, with the extra funding from the state, able to hire many more people. And of course, it's important for people to come from the communities in and around Lake County so that they are a trusted voice, and also that they have the ability to speak other languages, in particular Spanish, right? The Hispanic community has been extremely hard hit by COVID-19, and so that's very critical. But yeah, they are making phone calls. They are really kind of ensuring that we're getting people tested and making sure that people are quarantining themselves, because we do know that people who are asymptomatic are able to spread COVID-19. So it's very, very critical that people get tested.
And so once again, I know the testing pushes out there. I think there was 750 people can be tested at a site per day.
That's correct.
So we still want to encourage people to get testing because that is available. And as far as the numbers of people getting tested, is that a concern for the Lake County Health Department? Are people going, or what do you feel the result is of that?
There's room for more. So we really need to encourage people to get tested. So the last I had heard, there was a number about 450 people were getting tested a day. So when we have room for another 300, that's a lot of people sitting idle, who could be getting tested and bringing down, quite frankly, our positivity rate. So that's what really happened. The more people who were getting tested was leading to our positivity rate going down. So it's also just ensures that that we can move into these, we can open up more, because as people get tested, we're really getting a better understanding of who needs to be quarantined and who's safe and who isn't, right? So the more we can push that out, the better. And many of us attended protests over the last 2 or 3 weeks. And so one of the things that the state was asking was, hey, make sure that if you've attended those protests, that you're going out and then following up and getting tested. So we're really pushing that too.
That is important. So, but now I know that when we talked about the fact there was 122 million provided to the county. Does the county in any way work with schools? Is there anything anticipation as to how schools will be serviced this coming fall?
So I'm actually having a town hall next Tuesday night, and we do have a school superintendent who will be joining us during that call. We have not heard from schools yet on this issue on COVID-19, but I would anticipate they would have great needs, right, of how to keep kids safe and making sure there's sufficient masks and increased amount of cleaning that will need to occur in the schools. And we don't even know what the design is. So we don't know if kids are going to be coming back at all in the fall, or if it's just going to be, a couple days a week. So I'll be very interested in hearing from Scott about that.
Now, we know that also, generally when we talk about the phases, we are in phase 3, but it's been said that each phase is 28 days. So as we make it to the end of June, I guess we can't really anticipate what the governor is going to say in the next week or so. But what do you think we can anticipate as we make it into phase 4? Is it going to be easy transition, or are there going to be major changes, maybe just on the business end?
Right. So I'm actually just going to go on to the state of Illinois' website, which I think is really great, and it's coronavirus.illinois.gov, and there's just a lot of great information there. And from there, you can link over to the IDPH, the Illinois Department of Public Health, to take a look at where we are for the Northeast region. But phase 4, as we heard this morning on our call together, Shaunese, I think people are really ready for phase 4, but they want to do the right thing. They want to do the right thing for their employees. They want to do the right thing for their customers, and families want to do the right thing, right? Not just for themselves and maybe some elderly parents, but they just want to do the right thing for public health standard. So what we can expect per the governor's website is so all outdoor recreation would be allowed. We would have 50 people or fewer could gather together. And that outdoor recreation, by the way, that would include pools. So my daughters are excited about that. They're both trained to be lifeguards, so they're hoping that the pools are going to open. Bars and restaurants will be able to open. So and entertainment will open, right? So cinemas and theaters will be open as well, and then retail too. So I think people are really, really very ready, but we do need to be cautious. Whenever people can, to social distance. They should be wearing masks. They should make sure they're washing their hands, and just staying well, not just for themselves, but also for the people around them, people in their community.
To help each other, that's definitely important. So Sandy, let's take a minute to travel back to February of 2020.
Okay.
Before March of 2020, when all of this happened, I'm sure that there was a lot going on at the county board. And when COVID-19 came over, it just kind of consumed everyone. What about all those other projects you were working on? Is there anything else you want to share that was prior to COVID-19 that the county was working on that I'm sure you're still working on, but instead of going all into the business funding and the COVID-19, are there other things that are important that are taking place at the county with the board as far as discussions at this time?
Sure. Thank you for asking. So we did need to kind of put some things on hold because really we needed to work on essential business. So, and that was per the governor's mandate. So one thing I just really want to share is, while we have an emergency declaration, and we are following, and so far we have followed the governor's order on that and kind of moving with him. We don't have the ability to say, well, you know what, we're going to open up Lake County, right? So we follow what the governor says. So I just want to make sure that's out there because I think there's rightfully a lot of confusion because there's a lot of different information out there. So we continue to work on just providing the best possible service for Lake County residents. Like I said, some of the work that the health department is still doing, that's going to go on. Some of the road projects that we have in Lake County to reduce congestion and ease movement of people to and from work, those are still happening. But some of the things that I'm most interested in, I would call it right-sizing government. That had to take a little bit of a hiatus. The most important thing was this public health matter. So, but now we're looking at that again, right? So we have a lot of commissions and drainage districts and things like that, kind of really looking at that and saying, hey, is there a better way for us to do this? Can we consolidate some areas of government? Can we dissolve some areas of government? What are those areas in which maybe we can do things differently? So some of those things, like we have a lot of fleet vehicles. Well, a lot of those fleet vehicles have been sitting idle. Maybe this gives us some time to take a look and find out how many vehicles do we really need. And then our board has really, as residents of Lake County, we understand property taxes are an enormous problem in Lake County. So what can we do as the county board to be part of the solution, right? So we held taxes last year. We did not increase our tax levy. That was the first time in at least 20 years, if not longer. We held the line. And so I know that our board is interested in doing that again, but knowing that revenue outside of property tax is down. So if we want to make sure that we're not increasing property taxes, we've got to really take a look at what are the opportunities to save money. So one thing right now is our Regional Office of Education had rented space from the College of Lake County. So I had requested for staff to take a look at that and see if there's some room at our central permit facility in Libertyville. Thankfully there was, so that's going to save us $100,000. Is that going to make a world of difference? No, but is it going to make a little bit of difference? Yes. And so I think looking at those areas where we can save money is something that we will continue to do as a board.
Well, thank you very much, Sandy. On behalf of the Lake County Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to thank you very much for the work that you are doing with the Lake County Board and the Lake County Health Department. I know you serve District 13 in Lake County, but you also serve as chair of the Lake County Board, and everything that's been coming out from your area has been absolutely wonderful. We want to thank you for providing the information you've shared today, and we look forward to getting more information and updates. Of course, the Lake County Chamber is also always looking to provide more information to our members and the business community. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time today to be here with us, and we look forward to hearing from Lake County again as more information is announced. And wonderful. Thank you again.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing, and you and your team, Shaunese. It's so important that people understand that there is help available. So the work that you're doing with these videos and sending out all of this communication, it's just really critical. That's how we're going to really recover, is with everybody working together. And I just want to say thank you so much for everything that you've been doing, and for, again, serving on my strategic advisory group. It's been really, really helpful. So thank you.
You are so welcome. And for those viewing at the end of this program, we will be highlighting some of the details that Chairman Hart has shared with us today, as well as organizations or website information. So we ask you to stay tuned, and you get that information for follow-up as well. Have a good day.
Great. Thanks so much. Take care.